Showed up on such a very, very cold night. It is Monday, January 20th, 2025, and this is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors of the Education Service Center and on the district website. It was also sent to the West Bend Community Memorial Library, the Daily News, WRYU, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I'm going to pause to ask Superintendent Wimmer to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. I invite you to join me as we rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We're just going to take care of one item of business before we get to recognitions. It's time to consider approval of our agenda. The agenda was posted in advance. I'd move to approve this agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Kelly, thank you. Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries, and we have an approved agenda, which means we're going to jump into our recognition section. And tonight, we are pleased to recognize members of the Badger Middle School and Silverbrook Intermediate School robotics teams. And I understand that Angela Neuser is the advisor. I think I see you back there. Absolutely. Come on up, everyone. Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Superintendent Wimmer, do you want to give them some instruction as to where they might best stand?
They got it. I told them to gather on each
Fantastic.
side.
All right.
On this side too, guys. Spread it out. You can put your robot down in front if you want, James. So hi, I'm Angela Neuser. I'm the Science Social Studies teacher at Silverbrook, and I have been the robotics advisor for Silverbrook teams for 4 years now, I think. And this year, we combined our Silverbrook and our Badger teams together. So I just want to tell you a little bit about we call ourselves now the West Bend Middle School robotics teams, because we're going to join together. So just want to tell you a little bit about West Bend robotics by the numbers. This year, we had 31 students participate on 4 different teams. You can tell by their colors. We had 17 amazing parent coaches who came and helped out with all of our practices and everything else. They did so much. Countless numbers of hours we had preparing for our meets, for our competitions. We had over 10 experts that we consulted, including one field trip to the hyperbaric chamber of the Hartford Hospital, which was pretty cool. We have 5 corporate sponsors. Let me turn around, show me back your shirt. 5 corporate sponsors who helped to support us financially. And the kids had all of that time to prepare 20 missions that they had to build and code a robot for 20 missions that they could do in 2.5 minutes in their rounds. They had one global challenge to solve regarding undersea exploration. And one of our teams even advanced to the sectionals this year, even though we're a pretty young team. So they did a really great job there. So 100% of our team members developed all kinds of skills, STEM skills related to research, presentation skills, collaboration, the engineering design process, coding, robot design, and they all are ready to take everything they learned this year and apply it next year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the kids. You guys want to tell them one memory or something that you want to share?
The one memory that I have and I will hold this memory forever, is when we were doing the robotic challenge, where we had to let the robot loose and just had it run its course. And I learned how to gyrocode by doing this because I had to research outside of school and robotics because I needed to. Like, I had to make sure it was, efficient. That's the word I'm looking for. Efficient and reliable, so that it will always go to the same spot and won't just be going everywhere. And that's not really what we want when we're doing things. Oh my gosh, I'm so stressed.
That's okay. You're doing great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate you sharing your memory. That's fantastic. Who else would like to speak? Anyone else?
A core memory of mine that I will always think of is my first year of robotics. in that first year, I figured out what robotics really was and what it meant to be part of a team that was working together and coming over struggles that we all faced as a team, as not acting as multiple people, but acting as one person trying to achieve a conglomerate task. And I will always hold dear to me what the experiences that I had and the memories that I hold.
Thank you. Who else would like to talk? Anyone else? Yeah, come on, come forward.
So I'm the captain of the team that advanced. James was our primary coder, but we also had 6 other incredible people that helped us. Write our scripts that we had to present in front of judges and make our board. So, I just want to give a nod to them because they're not here right now, but all of them pitched in to help.
Great. Thank you. Outstanding. Okay, anyone else? All good?
Anybody else?
Great. No, that's okay. Fantastic. Come on over, please.
I'm Julian's father. I've been a coach for 3 years. Started with Miss Noiser, was with Mr. Gonring, and then again with Miss Noiser the second time around, or for a second time around. I just want to help call out to all of the students how cool it is to see them grow. And even in their failures, I'm going to put that in air quotes, like not necessarily advancing, but the growth from the 6th grade to the 8th grade, how much they've owned their process and all those mistakes are theirs, and then they've grown beyond that, and I'm very proud of all of them.
James, do you want to do your demo?
Hello, I'm Marshall's dad, and I guess just coming from a parent perspective, parent coach, it's really neat to see a different outlet. There's athletics, and we focus really heavily on athletics, and some kids aren't as good in athletics, right? But it's really a chance and an opportunity for these kids to expand their minds. They also get to kind of practice what you guys do, right? They all had to pick a team captain, and they had to pick a, gosh, I'm blanking. What are all the roles? What are all the roles you guys had to pick out? Project manager. So they're really getting involved in what's that? Recorder/reporter, right? So there's a lot of different roles that they're learning about, and they're flexing that muscle. Really cool, to see that growth in this program. So really happy to be a part of it, and hope that we can continue to support these kids as much as possible in the future. So,
Absolutely.
So earlier, Ms. Neuser had mentioned missions. So we have 20 of them. This is just one of the ones that we had this year. It was called the Sonar Mission. It was one of the hardest, I think. This is one that I coded earlier today. It should work, I think.
That's why you use gyro code.
Julia.
Sorry.
So we use these motors. They do all the tasks for us, and then this hub is what we code on. It pretty much just sends all the information to these motors, so they do what we need them to do. So that is what I coded.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Do any of the sixth graders or 6th grade parents, your first timers, want to have any comment? Anything that you want to share?
Hi, I'm Mikhail's dad. Like Ms. Neuser mentioned, I'm a first-year coach. So for me, it was a lot of learning curve, as well as our team just getting involved in this program and understanding what it takes for our academic professionals to corral this many kids, especially after such a long day. Just getting a little dose of that, and just also supporting them, watching them grow, take on challenges that they haven't had before. Public speaking is a big part of this program as well, not just a technical skill. So really was an awesome program for us to get a part of, working together, and then, learning from some of the experienced teams, how they progress each year, and, also kind of calming us down and say, hey, it's okay. This year is going to be a little bit rocky, but if you stick to it, the progress does come. So big shout out to all of the kids that are part of this program, as well as Ms. Noiser and the parents also, because it was really cool to just kind of all come together. And some of us had different success, but we all succeeded at the end of the day. So that's my little piece. Still no?
That's okay.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I think we're gonna, Marshall mentioned the other team members, so since not everybody was able to fit in here tonight, we did kind of hastily put together a video for you, kind of introducing the other teams and what they learned and what they did throughout the program. It was with the promise of ice cream at the end, so I think they did a pretty good job. So we'll let you enjoy the video. Am I running it?
Hi, we are the 7th grade Hydro Hunters from Badger.
I am Marshall, and I am the team captain. I am proud to say that our team advanced at regionals, went to the Waukesha sectional to represent West Bend Middle Schools.
This is a robot bender. We designed this robot using a base, sensors, motors, and gears.
We coded our robot using the Lego Spike Prime coding website.
One of the missions we coded was Mission 2 Shark. To accomplish this mission, we had to code the robot to maneuver through the board and push down this yellow lever.
Let us show you an example of one of our mission runs.
I'm Ben. I'm the team captain of the team. Our team is unique because we mix 6th through 8th graders.
Each year, we are given a world problem to solve and are challenged to come up with an innovative solution. This year, the challenge was to solve a problem with underwater exploration.
Our team chose the problem of corrosion. We considered a few solutions as a team and eventually decided to research aluminum coating. Aluminum coating is when you put a coating of aluminum around the submarine.
After meeting with some experts in the field, our team member Julian decided to add the use of Vibrio nitrogens, a biological solution to the problem. I know, heavy stuff for 8th graders, am I right?
Unfortunately, our team did not advance, but we did learn some valuable lessons about teamwork and communication and got some great feedback to apply next season.
We want to acknowledge our amazing sponsors for their support of our teams in the West Bend Middle School First Robotics Program.
Hi, we are Title Tech.
I'm Veda, the team captain. We are a rookie team of 6th graders, and we learned a lot this season while having fun as a team. At the competition, we had 2.5 minutes to accomplish as many missions as possible on this table. This is our robot, Jeremy. Our main robot operators are Luke, Veda, Max, and Aiden. One of the missions we coded was Mission 5, Anglerfish.
To accomplish this mission, we used the lift arm attachment. I hope you enjoy this demonstration.
We are the Silverbrook Sixers.
We are a rookie team of 6th graders this season, just starting our first robotics.
We were also given the challenge to solve a problem related to underwater exploration. Check out the Innovation Project board.
Our team also chose the problem of corrosion on deep sea equipment.
We considered a few solutions. As a team, and eventually decided on a 3-part solution to incorporate everyone's ideas. It was a good compromise.
During this experience, we developed our research skills a lot. We used a variety of sources, including reaching out to experts for advice.
On behalf of all the teams, we want to thank our parent coaches for helping and supporting us through the season. We couldn't have done it without them.
We appreciate the support of our school district and the board for the middle school first LEGO robotics program.
Thanks. Do you have any questions for the team?
Gosh, well, I'll just start by saying this is really impressive. I think Kelly, you and I were just talking a little bit in advance that, well, certainly was I was in school, which was a long, long time ago. This didn't exist, and this is just really impressive what you have learned. You know, sometimes school, you're going to learn a lot in school, but school doesn't teach you everything. And I think one of you was talking before about how you had to do this outside of school and take on and learn that knowledge. Or you were talking about that, right? You're exactly right. That's very, very impressive for you folks to learn at your age where you are in school. I'm just extremely impressed. And so thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing this with us. This is really impressive, and you should be very, very proud of your accomplishments. Board members, anything else for these fine folks? We really appreciate you coming, especially on such a cold night. So thank you. I think you deserve a round of applause. Come forward.
Thank you. I have one more thing to say. I could not have done this without my teammates, and I'm sure neither of the other teammates could have. But I especially know none of us could have done this without our parent coaches, and especially without Miss Noiser.
I'm so glad. It is about teamwork, right? That's so important. I'm so glad you said that. Thank you so much. Well, this is a public meeting. We invite you to stay for the whole meeting, but you know what? We also know you probably have some things to do. So if you wish to leave, we're not going to be offended by that either, but we sure thank you for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great job.
Personally, the value, I know his son's been in robotics forever. He's been a mentor for us.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again. You know, while you're collecting yourselves, next on the agenda is public participation. I'll just ask, is there anyone in the crowd that has a public participation comment card? I did not see any, so I think we're okay there. So we will move on then from public participation. Next, we have our consent agenda. We have a number of items on our consent agenda, and Superintendent Wimber, thank you. I believe last time there were a number of items we asked to have placed on the consent agenda, and I see them here. So we have minutes of the January 6, 2025 regular board meeting and executive session. We have contracts, 2 new contracts, 12 renewal contracts, no resignations. There's 1 retirement. Then some items we talked about last time, monetary donation for weight room equipment, the 2025-2026 facilities capital plans, and the 2025-2026 technology projects. Enrollment projections for open enrollment seats. And then an item, certified staff salary ceiling. Are there any questions on any of the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would move to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second. Melanie, thank you. We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We'll move then to reports. And Superintendent Wimmer, you're up.
So we told the students they did such a great job they could have tomorrow off. But we really did have to call off school for tomorrow due to a extreme cold warning. That's new language for the National Weather Service. They shifted that in fall. It used to be wind chill advisories, then wind chill warnings. So that threshold is minus 30 degrees at sustained wind chill rates because, again, exposure could result in frostbite or damage. So when you think about students who might be walking to a bus over a mile, then standing at a bus stop, then reporting into school, that's when it starts tripping into that. Once we monitored weather back into the update we received this afternoon, it was clear we just weren't going to pull out of those minus 30. We're going to have some overnights and into the early mornings, minus 35, minus 36, that we just wouldn't be able to recover from. So they're not lifting that warning status until noon tomorrow. So again, when we tripped into that from advisory to warning, that's when all the districts convened to make that decision. Made it a little bit easier probably for families. Sometimes we're waiting till the wee hours of the morning. We had a scheduled call for 3:45 a.m. in case we needed it. But again, the weather reports, the kind of accuracy and their reliability, high ratings of those temperatures are going to materialize at a time when kids would be ready to leave for bus stops in the morning. So hence that message. Those messages go out to our families by way of voice, by way of email, and then we certainly promote those on multiple channels. Everyone will call in their closures. We also work very closely, people might not realize, with private and parochial schools, because again, a school district actually operates all the transportation for those systems. That's one of our kind of benefits that we provide to all of those partners. So we had several schools that were in session today, so we had been working across and collaborating with all our private and parochial school partners over the weekend too. So we move as a team on the community decisions. So any questions about weather or that piece of that? Okay, I've got a few more updates. This morning, today was a staff professional day, and the Jackson Visioning Team has formed. There's representatives from your upper grades, lower grades, different specialty areas out of the Jackson staff. And they've been doing some tours of schools and behind some scenes work with EUA and Findorf to kind of think about how they need to represent, what decisions are going to be on the horizon for them. So today, that Visioning Team led their entire staff through kind of what they saw when they toured, what were things that they were thinking about as far as incorporating into design in future schools. So they did a really amazing job walking through and sharing their experience and kind of what lies ahead. So they did good. In regards to other pieces of the referendum, you've got some pieces later on the agenda related to that, but also just a reminder, we're looking at elementary boundaries as we shift the footprint for a couple of years out. We are doing some preliminary work. We had done some test fitting. Now our Go Right Way partners are doing some boundary work around what those potential boundaries look like. We had always targeted that work for winter, and then we'll bring that forward. When they have that, we'll convene a group to analyze, look at those, and make some recommendations for the board to review on that as well. So that's where they are in process. I know we've got some athletic items further down the agenda, but I just wanted to remind everyone that starting this fall, our high schools will join the new Glacier Trails Athletic Conference for WIA sports, with the exception of football, girls swim and dive, gymnastics, hockey, and lacrosse. So members of that conference include East and West, Port Washington, Saukville, Kewaskum, Kettle Moraine Lutheran, Sheboygan South, and Plymouth. That football conference was sitting separate. So the area athletic directors met to try and align the football conference with other sports. So they requested to move several of the teams, including East and West, from our current North Shore Conference to the Glacier Trails Conference, future conference. So the WIA Conference Realignment Task Force approved a modified version of that request, recommending the inclusion of Grafton and leaving an 8th spot open in that Glacier Trails football conference. So that is then designated as a crossover game with the existing North Shore Conference. So that's effective for fall 2026. Those recommendations are finalized by the WIA Board of Control on March 11th. So recall the sports that I had listed before, our new conference doesn't have the level of competition we're accustomed to, so our athletic directors are scouting additional conferences for those sports to compete. So just lining up pieces of that puzzle on behalf of our students. Tomorrow marks the first day of the second semester for our students. They will be off, however, until Wednesday. And just a thank you to crew members. You might recall our high school students talking about that crew members. Those are those upper class, junior, senior mentors who help students transition into the high school or serve students. They held some coffee shop hours, some different studying activities as students had end of semester exams last week. So thank you for that. And a reminder to everyone about the transition to high school. We have a big Gearing Up for High School event on Wednesday, January 22nd. We're inviting all 8th graders and family members. It starts at 6 p.m. at the high school auditorium. Students can learn about their school through tours, connecting with teachers to learn more about classes, programs of study, course offerings. They can see fall athletics, a variety of clubs, just learn more about the high school. So we're excited about that. And a reminder that 4K enrollment opens January 27th. We have an exceptional program filled with community partners with locations in West Bend, Newburgh, Jackson. We also have some environmental education-based sites, so just see our website for more information, and a reminder that that enrollment opens January 27th. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there other questions for Superintendent Wimmer? Thank you for your report. We'll move then to, we have two companion discussion items. We will begin with WIAA Cooperative Team Sponsorship for Gymnastics. And I believe our athletic directors are going to come forward and talk about this item. And just as you're coming forward, these are discussion items, so there's no action to take, but I believe you're going to kind of outline a direction and go find out more information, then come back in the future, right? So no action tonight, but we're going to hear about an approach.
Correct. We want to fill you in on
Great.
everything we've done so far and what we're hoping for.
Thank you.
So West Bend East and West high schools seek to create an official WIA-sponsored co-op for both gymnastics and wrestling. So gymnastics would be for one school year. That's just regulated by the WIA. It would be the 25-26 school year, and then we would have to renew each year thereon. And for wrestling, it's actually a 2-year cycle. So we would be asking for the approval for 25-26 and then 26-27 as well. So what we've done so far, we've collected the participation data for the past 5 school years and looked at the projected numbers, talked to some of the youth coaches, youth programming, to see the direction in which both our wrestling and gymnastics programs are going. We met with our respective wrestling and gymnastics teams and coaches to discuss the potential of becoming a co-op. So the students and coaches, they got to ask us questions in person, and we had some really good conversations with the student athletes in particular. And then as a follow-up, Ms. Hanks and I, we sent out surveys to all of the students who participate in both gymnastics and wrestling at both East and West, so that they could provide their feedback to us in the survey form as well, in case they didn't want to talk in front of all their teammates. And then after that, we communicated with parents and guardians to let them know our survey results and where they stand. And the students were in favor, the majority for both wrestling and gymnastics were in favor of pursuing a co-op for both sports for this upcoming school year. So talking a little bit, I know Ms. Wimmer talked about the conferences. So wrestling, we would be part of the Glacier Trails Conference. And then for gymnastics, we're exploring the option of staying with the North Shore Conference or possibly exploring the Greater Metro Conference. So we have conversations with the commissioners of both of those conferences going on right now as well to make sure we have a good fit for our gymnastics programs. In the Glacier Trails Conference, the only schools that offer gymnastics are Port Washington, the West Bends, and then Sheboygan South, but they're already affiliated with another conference, so they wouldn't want to compete with us for gymnastics. So, and then Ms. Hanks will continue.
We just wanted to share that one of the most important parts of this process we felt was engaging directly with our student athletes that are most affected by this process and these changes. And through the conversations, we're able to, like Ms. Felber alluded to, they will express things to us or through surveys that, in their language and in, teenagers' eyes and perspectives of things that they're worrying about, that it's good for us to hear them and uncover maybe, situations where we haven't thought of or opportunity, like potential challenges early on that we can plan for or discuss. But at the same time, it gives us an opportunity to see really the excitement that they share when they consider the future. So by prioritizing the student input, we put their needs in perspective, and we also want to make sure that they understand that we want them to feel part of the ownership of creating a sense of belonging and, with a newly combined program, because it is a big transition. So through these surveys and the conversations that we had with our respective teams, we just wanted to kind of share with you some main themes, some main conversation pieces that came out of each. I would say for wrestling, our biggest expressions were like it would increase the ability to fill all weight classes. That's a real big concern within each of our programs right now and in the future. A lot of athletes expressed it would raise the level of our competition, especially associated with not being able to fill weight classes. A lot said improve the overall experience, in their participation in the program. This would address the low declining numbers in our youth program, as Ms. Felber talked about. And because of the movement to a new conference, I think it generated some excitement in, a new conference, new program. On the gymnastics side, very clearly, we are, especially starting next year, we feel like it's the only option because of the declining participation numbers. And it would allow for us to offer complete JV and varsity rosters, which is just a healthier way, obviously, to compete. And it will also increase the confidence of our competitions, especially in a transition to a one program. And I think it would give our program some healthy competition rosters, which that is a big concern for us moving forward. So at this point, based on the declining participation numbers and the successful history of our other, West Bend High School co-op programs, we're recommending to proceed with the East and West Gymnastics Co-op Agreement for the 25-26 school year, as well as the Wrestling Cooperative Agreement for the 25-26 and 26-27 school years. And we want to know if you have any questions for us or things that we can further explain for you.
Sure. So would next steps be if the board doesn't object to have you, would we see an ultimate agreement? What would be next steps?
Yes, you want to?
Sure. So the next steps would be we have to get signatures from the commissioners of the respective conferences, and then we would move to WIA approval. So that would be the final stamp of approval. So we still have a couple more steps. And there's also, if for some reason, all of a sudden, all of these kids decided to go out for the program, and which is great, you aren't stuck to that either. So you can back out. It's not like you are set in stone when the paperwork is in. So you would still, prior to the start of the school year, be able to change if needed. But we think right now, truly where we're at, this is the best opportunity for both our students in gymnastics and wrestling.
Can you speak to one thing that they might not recall or remember? Sometimes when you newly form a co-op, sometimes you have to sit out certain competitions or things like that. We've seen that before in some agreements that they've had to think about. Can you just speak to how these are impacted or not in this case?
Yep. So one thing too to touch on, it would be no cuts. So WIA co-ops, they don't allow any cuts. And we would be playoff eligible. So we would follow all the timeline and structure and get the signatures by the appropriate deadlines so that there would be all of our kids could still go to regionals, to sectionals, to state, and still compete at that high level. They would just be competing as an East-West co-op, very similar to, a swim and dive that we've been doing for a long time, our golf team, and several others.
So to that end, I saw in the write-up that may need new uniforms, but other than that, really, from a monetary perspective, it really wouldn't be significant or anything additional, true?
The truth is, we'd probably be saving money as a district in the long run. And so yes, you would need new uniforms to make sure they're neutral as far as the school colors goes. But when you look at transportation, tournament fees, things such as that would definitely save money.
I guess maybe my last question would be then from the student's perspective, maybe there's a different uniform, but will their experience change? I mean, it sounds like they're able to compete in essentially the same things. I mean, is there anything, what negative side effects would the students experience, if any?
So say the only thing a couple of the gymnasts expressed to me is right away, they were like, oh, Ms. Felber will be Division I. So they would, because it's the enrollment of both East and West, you would be Division I. So that is a higher division. than what they are currently. I believe they're both D2 for gymnastics. Wrestling wouldn't change at all as far as the division. We would continue as Division I. But they would still qualify and compete and have all of the same opportunities. And wrestling is really taking off with females as well. So we hope too that maybe this larger program could build some interest and have more females join our wrestling program as well down the line.
Board members, other questions? Mr. Jenkins.
Just for my knowledge, and I don't expect you to know this off the top of your head, but what athletics now are not going to be combined? Like, what do we have left that we still have two separate?
So can I tell you what we have?
Sure, whichever is
I have
easier.
that
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
So for all the East and West co-ops that we currently have in place right now, we have boys swim and dive, girls swim and dive, girls golf, girls soccer, and I'm saying the WIA and non-WIA. So dolphin, synchronized swimming, trap shooting, snowboarding, winter guard, and then co-ops that we have in place that have multiple schools involved, not just East and West, are the Trail Sharks, our mountain biking team, downhill skiing, snowboarding, boys ice hockey, girls ice hockey, boys lacrosse, and girls lacrosse. So we have 33 sports opportunities. I don't know the math off the top of my head there, but there's still quite a few sports that would still be an East team and a West team.
So I guess I'll ask a controversial question then. Being as you admitted that there's a little bit of a cost savings, and I would argue maybe more opportunity as they grow in the divisions, why are we not exploring this for more sports? Or do you plan on exploring it for more sports?
So we have a process in place as far as, the need and people bringing it to us. So this was a conversation that's been honestly going on for wrestling for over a year now, as far as starting to get everything lined up and really looking into it. We just want to always make sure that we're including all stakeholders and everybody involved. So there could be more programs that would co-op down the road. But right now, for the winter deadline, these are the two that had the greatest need.
Yep.
So.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Other questions or thoughts?
Did you say the co-ops were not allowed to have cuts?
Correct.
Is that universal, all co-ops?
Yeah, that's a WI
I mean,
rule.
I think some, just because I know, like, for example, the girls' tennis teams were both huge this year. And that was already restrictive, where half of the teams couldn't play half of the times because they didn't have enough courts. So if you were to co-op that, you'd have, I mean, I don't know how you'd have to have, half the team wouldn't be playing ever.
Gotcha.
So sometimes I think it's just logistically difficult when you have facility restrictive things. I mean, there's only 8 courts in most places, and that's if you have, some have 6. So it'd be hard to do.
Yeah, good thought.
So from a follow-up perspective, I know that when we've established these in the past, that agreement comes back to the board, if I remember right, for adoption.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep, we would give it to Ms. Wimmer and Ms. Schmidt and
Sure.
pass it along, yes.
So that's a time where you would take formal action, but at the meantime here, I think what you're asking for the board is, if there are any objections to your continued movement in this direction and exploration, and if it turns out you think this really has legs, we'll see an agreement then in the future. Would that be true?
Yes, that
Yeah.
is true,
Okay.
yes.
Just want to be sure. Any other questions? It's a discussion item. We won't take action, but it sounds like you've heard our questions, and I think the consensus is we would like to hear more and can't wait to see what you come back with.
Perfect, thank you.
I just have one more
Yes,
question.
Dr. Jimenez.
It's considered a co-op because we have multiple schools that are participating in one team. If West Bend, East and West were a combined school, that would no longer be a co-op then, right?
Correct.
And then you would potentially have cuts. You could have cuts
Correct.
if this team was.
Yep, the rule for the cuts only applies to
Co-ops.
the
Okay,
co-ops.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yep, no, that's good
Had the right
clarification.
Clarification.
So,
All right.
well, thank you for your time. Appreciate
Thank you for
it.
yours. Appreciate it. All right, those were our discussion items. We move next to action items, and we start with the school year calendar, 2025, 2026. And Superintendent Wimmer, you're going to walk us through that item?
Yes, so the calendar committee convened and then shared a draft for all staff to provide further input. They convened again last Friday to review the comments, questions, and ideas from the staff, and then kind of revise the draft that you see before you. It largely mirrors a last year calendar. We're bound by certain state statutes on starting no earlier than September 1st. We're bound by minutes of instruction, expected days of instruction, those pieces. We also look for alignment across the different regional schools for things like athletics or other items where you're aligning your spring breaks, you're doing things of that nature. So this largely is creating a model that holds true to that and that expectation. It includes the restoration of just one day in fall as a fall break for all staff and students. It's lined up. You'll see it as October 24th, so that is a new item. There always was a fall break. I've heard that from families remembering that before. There was a couple days off. It aligned with some teacher convention. You can see we've got a day of service, but that would be kind of that week where they're targeting late nights with conferences for families, and then a day of professional service for staff and a longer weekend for families. So you see us aligning those pieces. Are there any questions about the calendar, what you've reviewed? This puts us with a June 9th last day for students. We would turn this over once approved. Principal Potter at the high school has a whole student graduation committee. We would turn this over to them, and they would then develop their program for graduation based on. They can either go kind of that Sunday before, they could look at a Saturday, they could look at a bunch of things. The only thing we have policy on is the even and odd years, which school gets to go first, if you will. So we would turn this over to them to refine those plans as well.
So by memory, I think if it was last year or the year before, there were two calendars that were presented, and this year it sounds like the calendar committee's presented one, which I'm pleased with. So it sounds like there was kind of coalescence around one recommended version.
Yeah, there were a couple things that led it to be a little bit easier development last year. The way spring break fell outside of Easter, it pushed more days off, so you had less days to work with. So we were trying to not go late into the school year last year. And how did we honor that? Kind of get in all the student and staff days that you needed as well. So we're looking at kind of a little later start. We came back and tried to push that up a little bit. So you saw us tweaking that calendar and giving staff some options on that. So we don't fall into that. This break aligns at the tail end of March. Generally, it's the last full week in March, but this one, that Easter is falling on April 5th is Easter Sunday, and Good Friday within that break this year. So it gives you a little bit more opportunity in its development and planning. Another key piece that maybe you don't see in here that impacts the curriculum committee, recall that we had a significant literacy law get put into place, Act 20. There's a lot of professional development for our elementary staff. There's, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours per month in ongoing kind of learning, application, reflection around that. Our calendar provides embedded opportunities for staff to attend to that. So it's not a significant piece. We were saying one of the next pieces we would do is kind of align what does next year's professional development plan look like that coincides with this calendar, and we'd bring that forward to the curriculum committee so that they could review that.
Board members, any questions on the proposed calendar? Hearing none, this is an action item. I'd move to approve the 2025-2026 school year calendar as presented. Is there a second? Dr. Temez, thank you. Motion and second to approve the 2025-2026 calendar, school year calendar as presented. Final discussion.
I would just want to point out that early learning always starts one targeted week later, ends a week earlier. We would go ahead and include with this approval a September 8th start date for our early learning program and a May 21 end date for those programs. Those are our community partner contracts, all of those. So that would fall in line with this calendar then as well.
Great, thank you. Any additional questions? All right, I will call the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We have an approved calendar. That motion carries. We next move to Municipal Financial Advisor, and Superintendent Wimmer and I believe Assistant Superintendent Lenny Hansen are going to walk us through this item.
So recall we discussed kind of two roles that we can help serve with kind of the financial decisions ahead for us. We had a discussion around some recommendations to have both municipal advising as well as underwriting. We launched RFPs, or requests for proposals. We certainly sent out to targeted firms who do that work, and then we put that live on our website. In this avenue for municipal advisor, where they have a fiduciary duty to the district, on kind of navigating those pieces, they become an employee and working on our behalf solely. That is in the lane of municipal advisor. So I've got some just historical pieces for you. I want to alert the board that we received 2 proposals in that, but with very wide-ranging services. You don't see those as public documents because we're sifting through. They're both very much a proposal that we could be negotiating or looking at with those firms, so you don't see that publicly. I just want to highlight there are 2 very different firms. One, and I can talk about this, is the Wisconsin Public Finance Professionals, LLC. That is a little bit smaller of an organization and comes in with some distinct services at a flat rate. You have a conditional flat rate of $37,500, but every kind of add-on piece, which there's a lot of add-on pieces, are at additional cost. Another firm is a little bit larger and has more experience in the educational lane, while that first one has a little bit more experience in both maybe some smaller educational projects and more municipal projects. So a little bit varied experience from the other. And then there is PMA. PMA Securities LLC, so they have a little bit broader service and a little bit different approach to some of the a wider scope of service, but then they give you, the board, some discretion on how you would want to choose to pay for those things. So certainly when we reviewed, we have a team of 4 who reviewed these proposals. Myself, Lenny, we had a field expert, Todd Gray, as well as our comptroller, Julie Marks, review all pieces, do some follow-up calls, people who have worked with both organizations. While they're both sound in technical skill, our team felt that we were positioned to recommend PMA as taking a next step forward because they had a wider array of experience specifically to the school market as well as services and an ongoing kind of financial planning relationship that we didn't see present in the other proposal. Now, with that said, just as the item right behind, you see someone in the audience to present, we certainly could have additional questions asked of the 2 organizations for follow-up from the board. We can certainly have someone come in and present a little bit more for questions, but we're very comfortable in our recommendation. It's really how the board would like to proceed at this point. Recall that you're just selecting a partner, just like we did with EUA or Findorf. You work out some of the other details once you make that selection. So our team is very open to how the board would like to proceed.
So again, just to emphasize, Superintendent Wimmer, if we approve the one or the other, we're not approving a contract per se
Correct.
tonight. So let's just wanted to emphasize that this is really focusing on one vendor partner that we would
Explore further with, and then figure out what that agreement looks like, what the terms of those agreements are, and as well as the expectations and kind of, like you said, final price and negotiations.
And if those final prices and negotiations don't turn out the way we thought, what do we move on to somebody else?
So you haven't signed anything, you haven't done any of those pieces, so we can bring that forward and formalize that if you want to kind of explore that, talk about that a little bit more. We can.
But this is the group that we feel is going to be able to represent the district best, know what we're going through, and kind of, you think you're going to be able to get to the number that you guys think is necessary?
Yeah, we liked the kind of long-term financial relationship, that ongoing strategy and those pieces, not coming in and out for one piece of the puzzle, more sticking with you in that kind of journey along that. Because again, then they would work in partnership. Like I said, your next underwriting services right behind us, and would work in partnership around, how they're working on behalf of our district. This is the one that works on behalf specifically of our district, so.
Other questions? Well, hearing none, I mean, it sounds like from administration's recommendation, it sounds like PMA is the organization that
We would recommend,
that
correct.
would be recommended. Well, then I move to approve the municipal financial advisor as presented. Is there a second? Kelly, thank you. Motion and second to approve the municipal financial advisor as presented. Any final discussion? I'll call the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries.
I'll work with the board president then to have that team in and present formally to the board and further that discussion right
Great.
away.
Thank you. Then we may move to the next item, which is underwriting services. And Mr. Hanson, I believe you're going to be presenting this item.
I'm going to introduce the item. We have, we actually, similar process, put out a request for proposal for underwriting services, just like we did for municipal advising. We received one proposal, which is from Baird. Baird is, you can see in the information in board docs, has a historical relationship providing this service as well for the district. As Ms. Wimmer was talking about, there's a little bit different nature of the advocacy and relationship between the municipal advisor and the underwriter. Underwriter has a duty of fair dealing, where they're both advocating for the district's best interest, but also the best interests of investors and so forth. So it's a little bit different type of relationship and a very different type of service from municipal advising. So Brian Brewer, who you've seen before at this podium from Baird, is here to give us some high-level overview of the services that they provide, as well as kind of, I think, a little bit about the environment right now that we are looking at in terms of interest rates and borrowing and that sort of thing. So I'll turn it over to Brian.
Right. Good evening.
Great, thank you. Good evening. Good to see everyone. So as Lenny introduced, our firm works as an underwriter in service to school districts and other entities across Wisconsin and the nation. We are the #1 ranked underwriter nationally, as well as in Wisconsin. So we are in the market every day, talking to and negotiating final terms with the purchasers of your bonds. And so when you hear the term fiduciary, that spot in the process is where we're, as you've seen hopefully throughout the months and years I've been in front of you, everything I do is aligned with getting the best package ready for the market, right? But what I can't say is in that day you actually lock in the rates, we are negotiating those rates between the investors that are buying it and the district that is selling it, right? And so we are dealing fairly with both, but we can't say we're only aligned with the district or we're only aligned with the investor, right? So that's where the municipal advisor comes in and watches our activity in that process and works with us on the structure such that between the two firms, you end up knowing that you have all your bases covered. This is the role that Baird has served for the school district going back into the 90s, even prior to my time. But in my time, we've operated this way in serving the district. It allows us to offer the bonds locally through our Baird office here in town. We'll talk to your local financial partners in town to see if they want to buy some of the bonds. So it gives you more control over the process of getting into the market and finalizing those rates. So that's kind of the way the two roles work. But one of the updates I wanted to provide is an interest rate update on the market, because I haven't been in front of you since right before the referendum. Congratulations on the referendum as well. As you know, throughout that process, we talked about a 4.75 conservative planning estimate, which is what went into the total principal and interest estimate that you provided throughout the process. And throughout that process, interest rates have moved up and down, but they continue to be lower than what you had been using at your estimate. So I'll show you an example of that, show you an update of the financing plan, and then a sample board action timeline. So this is that chart that I've utilized with the board, for years. But the bottom chart is a 30-year snapshot of the movement
in 20-year borrowing rates for municipalities. So the main takeaway is over a long period of time, even though rates have moved back up after the pandemic, the abnormally low rates in the pandemic, we are still historically very favorable for locking in financing for a long-term repayment of up to 20 years. The upper right corner is the one-year snapshot. As I mentioned, throughout the last few months leading up to the referendum, rates moved lower. Leading up to the referendum, rates moved higher. In December, rates moved lower again. And then in the last few weeks, rates have moved higher. I think, that will continue to evolve now that President Trump has inaugurated. We'll see his policies and his administration beginning their activity. And I think the market was kind of waiting to see how that all plays out. So timing-wise, the next month we will be working on putting paperwork together. Ultimately, it's for credit rating analysis. So you'll get a credit score, the district will get a credit score just like our personal FICO scores. And that will get us, published by a credit rating agency. The investors will look to that to make their decisions in addition to the financial trends and socioeconomic data that we will present in an offering document. So that those rates will continue to move. As of today, I don't want to jump ahead, I'll get to it in a second. The other thing that's going on in the market is the blue line here is the borrowing rate. The purple line is the reinvestment rate. So this is one of 5 times in the last 30 years where you actually can invest at or higher than your cost of funds. So you kind of get your cake and eat it too here in this environment. So you're locking in historically favorable rates at around 4%, and you're turning around, and while you're waiting to spend it to pay contractors over the next couple of years, you're earning an equal rate. So that gives the board a lot of flexibility as the process progresses to decide what do you do with those earnings. Once you've taken bids and you know where those bids are, you can either finalize the projects if bids come in a little higher, or you can use it to pay down debt. There's only 2 things you can do with those earnings. One is referendum-approved projects. The other is paying off debt related to referendum-approved projects. So this creates an environment where it's beneficial to lock in a portion of the total and then keep a portion to see where the state biennial budget goes, see where your property value growth goes, see where state aid goes, and then we can finalize in an early 2026 financing for the remaining portion of the total authorization of $106,250,000. So that's what this page is really saying, but ultimately the left side, the goal is to meet or beat that $1.02 that you communicated all throughout the referendum process. So $1.02 per thousand of equalized value for debt repayment. Ultimately, the goal is to minimize the total interest cost, minimize the interest rate risk, so locking in a portion of it while we have the bird in the hand, and then maximizing those investment earnings so that you have more choices as a board as the project progresses. The credit rating will be one of the first things that Lenny and I will work on with Jen. Currently, I have circled your most recent credit rating is a AA-. So evaluating Standard & Poor's process, because both Moody's and Standard & Poor's updated their methodology since the time you received that rating in 2021. So we will evaluate your current financial metrics and trends and evaluate which one to utilize. Ultimately, we want to at least be the AA- again, or we want to be a notch higher. I will caution you that when you're going to the market to borrow, a little over $100 million, it's harder to get an upgrade because they're now saying, well, you have more leverage and you're investing. Our argument will be that you also, as a district, paid down your debt prior to taking on the next investment. In addition, your property value base, the communities that the district serves grew by $2 billion since the time that they evaluated you last. So there'll be a number of discussions and presentations within that, but you are in a great financial position to be able to access the market. So repayment structure, like I said, it'll be a 20-year repayment. And then, a portion, this will be a discussion with Lenny, Jen, and your municipal advisor. Right now, I show the phase one is $96 million, which is taking advantage of locking in rates at around 4% and then reinvesting them for that repayment term, which you won't spend $96 million, in the first year. So you'll lock in those investments while you have them in order to maximize your earnings. And then ultimately leaving a second phase in 2026 that we can then adjust and fine tune based on what the new factors are over the next 12 months. The modeling that we're using is a 2% growth for the property value growth during the repayment period. As you know, your growth has been higher. Last year it was 4.7%, and the state average was 7.7%. So the 2% has always been intended to be a lower and more conservative and sustainable type growth rate. So how does that look? This is a very detailed page. Hopefully that shows up on your laptop and not the monitor. But ultimately what we're trying to do is that column in the middle that has the shading. So it's the Fund 39 debt levy, existing plus new. So, as of 23-24, your levy for debt was 0. As you know, this biennial or this budget, 24-25, you levied $8.2 million, which equated to the $1.02 on the far right column. So ultimately, we're structuring your new principal and interest payments to meet that $1.02. And in the first box, phase one, you'll see the AIC, which is an all-inclusive cost rate of a 4.27. So that's the one that will continue to fluctuate and monitor. That's the one related to the 4.75 that we've been using as the conservative planning estimate. So currently we're close to 50 basis points or 0.5% lower than what we were communicating during the process. And in the lower right box, that will be one that we will watch as a group over time because that kind of has the comparison to what you used in the referendum communication. So again, 4.75 versus the 4.27, it's about 0.48 lower. Total payments, principal and interest, $165 million that you communicated during the process is currently, in this snapshot, down to $157 million, so it's about $8 million lower. And then we're still targeting that $1.02 as your debt repayment target. So far, so good. Things will change throughout this process as I present updates to you, but this is an initial glance that we can begin working with Lenny and PMA if that's the direction you go, and update and fine tune based on new information from the market. So the final slide is a sample timeline. So discussion tonight, we would get paperwork ready for action at your February meeting. Ultimately, that meeting would be a resolution authorizing the sale of a certain amount. So if we go with this plan, it would be an amount not to exceed $96,250,000, and it would set certain parameters for delegating to the president and clerk the final sign-off. So the benefit of what that does is, as I showed you that interest rate chart, it moves all the time. It allows us to finalize within those parameters with the president and clerk's final sign-off, working with Jen and Lenny as well. So that resolution would be mid-February, probably your February 17th board meeting, and then ultimately getting all the paperwork and the credit rating ready to go, be able to get into the market late February, early March for locking in that first phase. I kind of skipped over this in this previous slide, but the first payment, the first principal payment, will be in October of this year. Because you levied the amount to make a payment, you're going to pay off principal of somewhere around $7 million right away, which is great because that means you're not accruing interest long-term on that initial payment. So it's, it will be about 6 months worth of interest, but you will be using some of that levy to pay off principal and not need to amortize it over a 20-year period. So that helps to lower that total cost as well. So I said a lot in a short period of time. The summary is you're in good financial position. The market is still consistent with where you've been communicating. And ultimately you're in a position where you can take advantage of the fact that your borrowing rates are very low and your investing rates are similar, so that they can kind of, you get the best of both sides of that. So any questions?
Board members, questions? So again, like our prior discussion, really what we're doing tonight is considering the selection of Baird, and similarly, there are things yet to be negotiated, so we're not necessarily approving this whole plan, but what we are approving would be negotiation with your firm to kind of wrap up and finalize your selection as firm. Is that correct? I just want to be sure I understand that correctly.
You're selecting, we're asking and solidly recommending that we partner with Baird to do that. What's not said is what those rates are, all those pieces of the puzzle.
That
just
comes down
yet.
the road.
Right, and like you said, he's projecting a specific timeline, which we support, but it might be modified. So you're not casting that in stone, you're casting the selection of Baird in stone.
Yeah, but what we appreciate is this is kind of your current view of what the world looks like.
Correct.
Board members, questions?
Just real quick, I was thinking back to last year when our municipality that I work for did our large-scale bonding. There was some level of like debt issuance credits that we were able to obtain because the market was so competitive at the time, and I guess I don't know the ins and outs of it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that ringing a bell at all?
Debt issuance credits.
Yeah, so pretty much we got reimbursed some of our proceeds.
Bid premium?
Yeah.
Bid premium,
Thank
is
you.
that the
Yep.
terminology?
Yeah,
Yes. This plan will have bid premium, I just don't know the amount, so I have it modeled in here. That's that middle column, kind of the right side of phase one.
Yep.
So what that is rates are so low, so like the market rates, their first few years are probably 2.9, the next few years are gonna be 3 to 3, 60, 70, 80. And then, the last few rates will be a little over 4. Investors, because those are so low historically speaking, as I showed you on that 30-year chart, investors want to own something. If they're going to lend it to you for 20 years, they want to own something that says 4 or 5%. Sometimes they want to own something higher.
Yep.
The only reason you as the borrower would ever agree to that is if they mathematically gave you an amount up front to offset the difference, right?
Yep.
And so that bid premium ultimately is determined by investor preference at the time we're in the market.
Okay.
And so what we do is we take that, offset the interest, and pay off more principal. So basically, you're not harmed on a present value basis by investors having that preference. The reason you do it is you get better market rates because what you want is the competition for the bonds, which then drives the borrowing rate lower.
Right.
So yeah, does that sound like what
I just
you were
want to
talking
make
about?
sure that was something you were considering, and it sounds like you are.
Yeah, definitely part of the plan.
Yep.
Other questions? Well, hearing none, and as this is an action item, I'd move to approve the underwriting services as presented. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, June. Motion and second to approve the underwriting services as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Look forward to continued work with you.
See you in a few weeks.
Thank you very much. Yes. No rest. All right. Next, action item, audited financials for 2023, 2024, effective June 30th, 2024, as well as fund balance designation. And so this was a presentation that we had at our last meeting. Superintendent Wimber, were there questions in the interim?
No changes, no questions in the interim. Recall that was kind of the wrap-up. Brian Grudenwald was here presenting, so you're approving both the financials as well as the fund balance designation as presented prior.
Board members, any questions on the audited financials or the fund balance designation? Hearing none, I'd move to approve the audited financials for 2023, 2024, effective June 30th, 2024, and fund balance designation. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. We have a motion and second to approve the audited financials and the fund balance designation. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries as well. We move then to future agenda items. We'll start with our board meeting calendar. Here are February meetings currently on our calendar. All these meetings are scheduled to take place at the Education Service Center. February 3rd, regular board meeting, 5:30 p.m. February 11th, curriculum committee meeting, 4:30 p.m. February 17th, board meeting, 5:30 p.m. And February 25th, policy committee meeting, 4 p.m. Any other additions? I believe I've got that correct. Anything
No,
else?
we've got a couple public postings. These are not scheduled meetings of the board, which again, you always note to check our website for those. But sometimes for the public, you'll see additional postings anytime there is a potential quorum of board members. So there's an upcoming event this weekend at the high school, and I may have a quorum of board members. It just alerts the public that we're cognizant there may be a gathering of board members. No board business is taking place at those events as well. There's an upcoming elected officials event where elected officials from municipalities, school districts, et cetera, are invited to attend. We post those kinds of things too. Those are always on our website.
Thank you. I'd also remind the public to look for the official postings for any of these meetings, as the date or time or location of the meetings may change between now and then. Any other items for follow-up and communication? All right, hearing none, we do have items that are properly discussed in executive session. So I make a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and take any such action if necessary based on its discussion, namely compensation and employment, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, to deliberate concerning public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and discussion of potential action to issue a preliminary notice to consider the non-renewal of an administrator's contract pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 118.24. That's a mouthful. I make that motion to adjourn into executive session. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Kelly. We have motion and second to adjourn into executive session. Any final discussion? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. I'll call the roll. Ms. Aragot?
Yes.
Ms. Lang?
Yes.
Dr. Temez? Yes. Mr. Swigert votes yes. Ms. Kruger? Yes. Mr. Jenkins?
Yes.
Mr. Donaldson? Yes. That motion carries unanimously. We're adjourned into executive session. Thank you to everyone for attending and for watching, and we look forward to